Every damn day.
Hello, everyone. It's Jerry at the Fledge, and welcome to Season 2, Episode 31. And today on the show, we've got our good friend Erica, and we will be talking about homelessness, unhoused, and poverty, and mental health, probably. And I'm going to lead right into you. Please introduce yourself and tell us about your organization.
Okay, I'm Erica, and I'm the founder and president of Jubilee. And Jubilee is a network that connects disadvantaged community members in the Greater Lansing Area with effective support and transformative opportunities. And the way we plan to do that, because we're a new organization, so we're still in the building phase, and the way we plan to do that is by obtaining properties, and then the properties will be rented out to people that qualify for a federal rent subsidy. And at this point, the vast majority of people that qualify for a federal rent subsidy in Lansing were recently homeless. So that's kind of the population that we're targeting, is to get the people that were recently homeless or in a shelter and get them housed. And then our organization will come around them with support to make sure they keep their housing. And luckily we'll be in charge of that as the property owner, and also connect them to a lot of resources and opportunities in the community where they can change their lives if they want to, and perhaps start a business or develop their art or whatever it is that they want to do. We hope to be able to connect them with a resource to do that.
What they were born to do.
Yes,
All
absolutely.
Right. So let's talk about words for a little bit. The difference between homeless and unhoused. Do you go back and forth with those words? Do you have a favorite?
I guess I haven't looked that deeply into it. I probably should. I just usually use homeless. I was recently, about 4 years ago, homeless, and that I feel like did define pretty well the experience that I had. So I typically use that word. I know there are people that prefer unhoused. There are people in the community that don't want to live in a typical house. So I guess I'm probably not the one that has the best definitive answer on which words to use, but I usually use homeless. However, I do see the value in unhoused.
I think you just said something that's kind of an epiphany for me. It was really up to your experience. If you felt like you didn't have a home, like you weren't comfortable anywhere, then homeless might be better than unhoused. But if you're the happiest homeless person, right, and this is going to be ironic, you might say, well, Lansing's my home, and the back 40's my home, and that's where the people I love are at, or whatever. But I really like relating it to the personal experience itself. What about, tell us about homelessness or unhoused in Lansing. Do you know how many people are homeless?
That is a really hard piece of data to get a hold of, because you would have to like the census goes to homes. It doesn't go to, encampments or whatever. So I don't know. I don't think it's possible to know for sure. And it just fluctuates so much.
And let's define it a little bit too, because there's different severities, right? There's, you're in the street, you're in the camp, you're not going to a shelter, all the way to you're living on your friend's couch, right? Tell us about the different levels, if you don't mind.
Well, I think that legally they define homelessness as like where you actually don't have a place to sleep tonight. I don't know what good that is, because, couches work for a couple days.
Right.
That's not a good long-term solution to any scenario. So.
It's very unstable, right?
Is, yeah.
One little argument about the dishes and you're back out on the street.
Exactly.
What is Lansing? Do you think Lansing is a typical city for homelessness, or do you think that there's more here, there's less here, there's average?
Well,
What do you think?
I haven't been out of Lansing in so long, and I definitely haven't experienced that landscape in any other city. So it's going to be really hard for me to say. I do know that as far as like, if people want free food, there's lots of resources for that in Lansing. It's fairly easy to get into a shelter in Lansing, although some of them do have, I've heard about some adjustments lately, but some of them have rules that aren't friendly to everyone. I think that's something that we could work on. So if you're actually homeless, I wouldn't say there's an abundance of resources, but there are some, and they're fairly easy to access. The problem that I see is that, this was a problem that I experienced personally, is that we don't have much resources beyond that to get people stabilized. There are some, and sometimes they work for some people, but a lot of times they don't. So a lot of times you see people going into the shelters and leaving and then coming back. And I just see that. I feel like being homeless should be like a huge red flag to the community, that this person, as long as they're receptive to it, needs like all sorts of love and support at this point in their life, and that should be the ticket to get it.
Okay. You're spending some words or some time on as long as they're receptive to it, and really making sure that the person wants that.
Mm-hmm.
And people are going to think, of course they want a home, of course they want a house, but I don't think that's always, we don't understand it. It's more complicated, right?
I personally don't understand it, because I definitely want a home and a house. But there are people that are content not having a home or a house. I think a lot of the time it's because they've been burned by the agencies and organizations that were supposed to help them, but somehow broke the trust. And I've had a lot of personal experiences along those lines as well. But there are some people that just genuinely want to be a nomad, or whatever you want to call it, and don't want to be restricted to that lifestyle. I think that should be okay too.
I think it causes a lot of pressure in some, right? So
Mm-hmm.
they get in a house, it's very stressful. They're going to lose it anytime. It's hard to have the expectation of the future. I want to stick with shelters, and then I want to move on to that transition a little bit. Are shelters for everybody?
No, they make it really, like, even when I was in the shelter, it was like the worst time of my life. And I was experiencing some behavior issues. And, some people would not be surprised to hear this about me, but I was like almost kicked out. So, and if I was almost kicked out, like, I know there are people that get kicked out, like, you have to come back sober, and that's just not a reality for everyone. So,
right. And there's trauma related to, there can be theft, there can be abuse, there can be all kinds of bad things happening, right? And so, if you don't mind, how did you go from, what was the thing that was effective for you when you were homeless and now you're housed, or you have a home?
I do have a home. I just, even through the year before I became homeless, there was I tried to find help from different places, and there just wasn't effective support available, even though I felt like I was doing the right things to find it. And so I became homeless, and at the shelter, I was really fortunate to find the first person along that part of the journey that actually was effectively supportive with integrity and followed through. And she helped me get signed up for the Housing Commission wait list. And at that point, after the trauma that I'd been through, I didn't have the executive function to be able to make that happen for myself. So I really needed someone to walk me through the steps and say, this is what you need to do today, Erica. You need to go get your daughter's birth certificate. So, and then now today we need to submit this stuff to the Housing Commission. And I was really blessed that I don't know how I got through the Housing Commission wait list so fast, but it was a couple months and I had a place. So.
Yeah, a couple months.
Yes.
So we're talking about unstable situations.
Mm-hmm.
People, how many of your documents did you have? Did you still have your birth certificate, social security card, driver's license?
I think I was fortunate to have my driver's license. So that's about it, actually.
Yeah. And so I think about, people, and you were, do you know what caused your homelessness, or do you want to talk about that?
We can talk about it. It was I don't want to take up too much time talking about the, what actually made me homeless is when the police came to serve me a subpoena. And instead of, just doing that and then going on their way, they came in my house because the door was cracked open and cleared the whole house, and with their guns drawn and stuff. I wasn't home at the time. And if you walk into my house, it looked like a normal house for the most part. And it might have been a little messy or whatever, but there was a hole in the mudroom in the back, and I think that might have been what tipped them off to maybe they should get code compliance over there. They asked me to return to the scene, and I was already going through some really hard things at that point in my life, and I was like, yeah, actually, that's not what I'm doing today. So they did have code compliance come and do the most thorough inspection ever. I'm not sure why they can't get code compliance to do inspections like that on these slumlords, but nope, they chose me. And after that, it was about $35,000 worth of repairs that I had to do, and it was my house, so I was responsible for those, and I never slept there again.
So you owned your own home.
I did.
And now, right now, are you in, what type of housing are you in now?
I am in subsidized housing through the Housing Commission.
So you were kind of, I wouldn't say lucky, but you said you had an advocate or a person who was working with you that kind of laid it all out for you.
Yes.
And if we take, let's say a mental health issue like anxiety and depression or even schizophrenia, and you lay that on top of it for somebody, and just saying you have to get a social security card makes them shut down for 3 days or something, right?
I've experienced that. Like, that's very familiar. I'm still working through that sort of trauma, and like a lot of stuff with starting the nonprofit. It's like more paperwork. No, I need a nap. So
I hope I'm not triggering anything right now.
No,
and thank you for telling us your story like that. But a lot of people come up to the porch, they're homeless or unhoused. They need a lot of services, and we start working with them. We might start, trying to get their social security card. And then because of all the other chaos around them, they don't show up again for 4 weeks. And so we start all over again, and it's constantly starting over again. And I think people want to blame that person, but there are so many factors here. What is Jubilee helping with that? They're homeless now. We've got to get them in, and here's this huge bureaucracy that they're up against.
Yeah, we have helped some individuals with that, where it's not a solid system, or there wouldn't be a need for Jubilee if there were. So we're working towards that. We're just like kind of in the building phase right now of our organization, building up support. So not as much as I would like, but that is one of the things that we're working towards.
Okay. And then one more thing, and then we're going to talk about how you're doing that work. Once you get housed, there's a probability in the beginning that you're going to lose that fairly quickly, 3 to 6 months, maybe even sooner. Tell us about that and how maybe you overcame that.
Well, if you don't pay your rent, there's a lot of different scenarios that could impact that happening. But paying the rent is important. So even if it's subsidized, it's still some. If it's not subsidized, then you have a huge rent bill. That's a problem. And it's always a lot of the paperwork to keep the subsidized housing. Like, personally right now, this isn't in the 3 to 6 month time frame, but I'm actually really worried that the Housing Commission is going to kick me out or something like that, because I haven't received my annual paperwork, which I usually receive in November or December. And I've asked them about that and not gotten a response. So, but that's a big booklet of paperwork. It's the paperwork. And there's also rules. And one of our clients that we've worked with through Jubilee recently, like, there's a gunshot in her house. So she's being evicted actually because of that. And she says that, it came from the neighbors or whatever happened. But either way, so whatever happened, now these people are out on the street again. Like, how does that make our community better?
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Why do you think they do this? That's probably the dumbest question I've ever asked, why people do anything.
It can't be any dumber than the answer. Like, I'm hoping that it's just like, I think is a combination of reasons. At the top of the list is the people with the power and the resources don't really care. And number 2 on the list is they don't follow through with anything. They never get, like, we have a ending homelessness, I forget exactly what they call it, but campaign. Like, there is something going on in the state of Michigan where the agencies are supposed to be working together. And I went to one of their meetings, and it looks like they're talking about good things, but why is it still such a problem? I think that there just needs to be more coordination, focus, follow through, and just really like what's going to work. Putting the blame on the person that's homeless, that's experienced trauma and confusion for their whole life, it doesn't work, because clearly they're never, not likely anyways, to just be like, oh, I'm going to pick myself up by my bootstraps today and then go fix all their problems. Like, it's very likely that they, like, somewhere inside of them, yes, humans have the capability of that, but in our system, it's just like so much. I forgot what you asked.
No, that's good. It was a perfect answer. When you start talking about basic needs and people being deprived of those basic needs, their brain starts to change, right?
Mm-hmm.
The difference between, I'm thinking about my business and my future, or my job, or my kids' college. I can't think about that if I'm thinking about where we're going to stay tonight, how much food do we have, am I going to be able to feed my kids? So that opportunity squeezes in on people. And I just, I don't know. I think people don't understand that. The pull yourself up by the bootstraps is such a stupid, ignorant, uninformed statement. Any of you out there using that?
It really is. And it's like, even before I went through some of the things that I went through, I would have wanted to be helpful. I let people stay with me and that sort of thing. But going through it myself was just like such an eye-opening experience. And I guess that's why I will dedicate the rest of my life to trying to do something about it. So
let's talk about that something. Tell us about your first Sunday of the month.
On the first Sunday of the month, Jubilee is hosting monthly task force meetings for our Operation End Homelessness. We believe that we can end, eradicate, or at least significantly decrease homelessness in our community. So we're bringing the community together to have important conversations and share stories about homelessness and poverty, and just let everyone know what Jubilee is trying to do. Like, I can set it up and I can do what I can do, but it's actually going to take like an army of volunteers to make it happen. So we just invite people to come and tell them what we're doing and what opportunities there are for them to get involved, and hopefully connect with some people that will help us out.
And we'll share some links later on how you can look up that and attend. Everyone's welcome, right?
Everyone's welcome. Yes.
Online option or in person? Or
there is not an online option yet. We are looking to do that in the future.
Okay.
But
all right. So I want to go, well, first of all, I'm a true believer that the people that are in the struggle, that are in the problem day in and day out, or have experienced it and learned, what is working and isn't working, are the ones that need to have a voice there. So I think you're a great leader for this effort with your personal experiences. And who do you need at that meeting? Like, if you could push a magic button right now, it'd be everybody probably. But let's say we have a magic button that's going to bring you 5 types of people. What?
5 of them?
I don't know.
That's exciting. Like a lot. That's a lot of people. We are definitely looking for people that to be a mentor, it's important that they have personal stability in their personal lives and their personal relationships. The last thing we want to do is bring chaos to the people that we're serving. So we're looking for definitely people with stable personal lives that are able to be mentors to we're going to call them jubilants, the people that live in our homes. And we're also collaborating with Loaves and Fishes, working towards serving some of the people Loaves and Fishes is the only shelter in Lansing that I know of that actually follows up with people in a halfway effective manner after they leave the shelter. So we're going to work with them and kind of start to build our programming with people that have left their shelter but are in their homes that are interested in connecting with us, if that makes sense.
It does make sense. I mean, that's such a fragile period, right?
Yes.
That, you start getting some good habits or mentoring or whatever it is. I mean, it's always about connection. How many
Yes.
people are around you? How many people are there to help you? What are those people doing? And, you know, getting that fragility out of the way in the beginning increases the probability. And you understand that. And I love that you're working with Loaves and Fishes because they do understand it. I think Advent House might do pretty good at that as well, but I'm not 100% sure. But I do love, it's Brent, right?
Yes.
Yes,
Brent.
I love Brent. So got to get Brent back on the show again.
That can happen.
So what happens at these meetings?
We start out just by briefly sharing the mission and goals and vision of Jubilee. I'm not going to go into like my long story anymore because the goal is to have people come back, and I don't want to bore them. So we share other people's stories if they're open to it. We are looking for people to share their stories of homelessness and poverty. I think stories are important. And then we look at either an article or a video together and then have a conversation about it. At the last meeting, we looked at an article about boundaries and then just kind of had a conversation about boundaries and how they're important and how they're helpful. And the goal of that being for boundaries, it's going to be important to respect the boundaries of the people that we're serving, as well as understand our own boundaries and walk into there so that we can have healthy relationships.
Are you going to do Therapy Thursdays for all your jubilants?
I am actually.
It
might be a little different format, but I'm very glad I have the experience of Therapy Thursday because I've pulled from that quite a bit actually.
I just thought of that. You know, if you had people that you had helped get housed or anybody actually that is in that kind of fragile period or longer, Therapy Thursday. Tell us what it was real quick because you did a great freaking job at that.
Thank you. Therapy Thursday was it started during the pandemic, and you were doing the 9 a.m. scrum meetings, and then a couple of the days kind of started to take a theme, and Thursday was Therapy Thursday, and I just found an article for us to look at, kind of made up some guidelines as far as I can't fix anyone. I'm not an expert in anything but my own life, and hardly even that. So, but we can learn together. So Therapy Thursday was kind of a platform to have discussions about mental health and share stories and just learn together how we can best support each other because that's different for everyone. So,
well, you're certainly an expert in your own life, but none of us have it together. Right. We all some of us know how to act like we do a lot more than others. But tell us, what is something what do you need? You need people to show up for this meeting.
We need people to show up for the meeting, get a deeper understanding of what we're talking about. And there's, even if people don't have stable personal lives, there's still lots of ways that they can help. We are looking for some blog writers right now, and we have an event coming up in September. So we're looking for event planners, all sorts of performers and artists and other vendors and exhibitors. There's a way for anyone to help that's interested. So.
And the stable life, that really kind of translates into you've got to make sure you don't make a promise to somebody and not be able to keep that promise, because that's the deal killer in so many ways, right? So you're working on your 501c3, it's all filed, the IRS might be backlogged or something, right? But that should be coming soon.
It should be, yes.
And then obviously that'll help you with grants, but you're going to set up donations too, where people.
We can accept donations right now. So
you can?
Yes.
Okay.
We have donor box or.
All right.
Things,
so we can share that as well. So if people want to make some donations now and start putting some, I guess, treasures in the coffer, that would be great. Your vision is huge.
It is.
How much is this going to cost? $1
million, I think.
Is it?
Yeah, we need properties. Yeah. Properties aren't cheap. The number that keeps popping into my head is 40 properties. If Jubilee had 40 properties, we could really make a dent in this problem in our community. If we had 40 separate households that we were wrapping our arms around and making sure that they kept their housing and providing them with connection, and not just saying it's here if you want to go sign up, but what do you guys, it's going to be written into their lease, monthly we'll call it an inspection so that it makes sense to be part of a lease. But more than that, it's going to be just an opportunity to connect and build relationships and see where they're at. And I do my best to not be judgmental. So like, if I'm part of them, like that's the role that I want to play, is like meeting with people and building a relationship to find out like, what are you into? If you're into art, well, we know some artists that can help you with that, or maybe not even help, but just to have the relationships. So
what are we not talking about that we should get in here before we?
I think
Sure.
that just the concept that there's poverty of resources. So there's poverty of money and food and housing. But a lot of the times, something that I've experienced personally is there's a poverty of relationships too. So I wouldn't say all homeless people necessarily have that situation, because sometimes it is just like, well, something crazy happened and I don't have my job and that's what happened. But a lot of, like, okay, I'll speak for myself. I sought for the year before I came homeless for positive support in people in my life. I joined support groups. I went to church, but the level of support that I actually needed, it just wasn't available.
Mhm.
And I remember I talked to like he's a deacon at the one church that I was attending at the time. And they were happy to give me, like, they gave me thousands of dollars. But when it came to, I wrote out like a 4-page, 12 font, single space description of the sort of intervention that I was going to need if my life didn't spontaneously combust. He was like, well, Erica, no one's going to hold your hand. And like my jaw just dropped on the floor. I can almost cry right now, because hand holding was actually what I needed the most. At that point, I did have the money to fix my own life. I just didn't have like the executive function to figure out what I should do with it every day.
Yeah.
So.
And Valerie here said it's going to take the whole village,
Yes.
and many hands to hold makes for light work, right?
It does. Yes.
So having as many connections as possible increases your probability of success, right?
Absolutely.
Do you I often hear people, don't give them $1, they're just going to spend it on drugs, alcohol, or
Right.
whatever, right? What's your response to that?
My response to that is whatever somebody else wants to do in good conscience is up to them. But I personally, if I have $1 and somebody's asking them for $1, even if they're holding a drink in their hand, I'm going to give them $1.
Right.
Because sometimes this might be a hard truth for a lot of people, but that next drink or next hit of whatever they're going to do is like the most hope they have for the day. Yeah. So who am I? Like, I believe in the Bible, it's not my responsibility what they do with it. My responsibility is to be generous and kind. So if somebody asks me and I got $5 or $10, like, they're getting it. So
I used to go to Dubai a lot, and the taxi drivers were not well off at all. They were actually pretty poor, or in poverty. Poor is probably the poor word. And it's something that stuck with me. One guy said he started smoking in the cab, and I'm like, I can smoke in here too. And he's like, yeah, this is the only thing that I really have to look forward to in the day. And it struck me about dignity and about just having that one little bitty thing. And it's not up to us to judge or to preach at them about what they should be doing. And I think you've always done a great job of that. And I think you are a great leader for this organization. Let's keep it, well, we can make it big, but what advice, if you're talking to 100,000 people in Lansing right now, which we're not, what advice would you give to somebody of an action they could do today or this week that wouldn't really take that much effort at all?
I think the actions that, like, if you have resources, well, let me just back it up a little bit. Be kind. There's nothing wrong with being kind. It's easy. It doesn't always feel easy or feel good. I know that for myself, but we can make that happen in every moment. Like, you never know what someone's going through. So just number one, be kind. And I think if it's one, that's it. And I think that could start if we just all try a little harder to be kind. who knows what could happen.
When you pull up at the corner, and this isn't all homeless people aren't at the corners, but when you pull up at the corner, don't hide behind your phone. At least give them a smile and look at them and
Absolutely.
make some eye contact. And if you got a quarter, give it to them. If you don't have anything, what I do often, I'll give cigarettes because I
Mhm.
won't have any money on me.
Mhm.
And that might not be the best, but it is something. So
Yes.
be kind, everybody.
Hmm.
Smiles work and love wins.
Absolutely.
All right.
Yes.
Anything else you'd like to take us out with?
I think that that's sufficient for today. Thank you for the opportunity to share.
Well, thank you for coming on the show. Thank you for helping to make our community stronger. We will end homelessness, and you will be right in the middle of making that happen. We love you, Erica. Thank you so very much. Love you all out there. Be kind to each other, and we will see you tomorrow on Every Damn Day or Dang Day.